I can't believe that this is finally out. That Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow, has her own solo MCU movie. After people begging for this for years, and then COVID, and then this being pushed back so far, it's finally out. Remember when this was supposed to kick off Phase 4, but then WandaVision now kicked off Phase 4, and now we're kind of like back to this? Yeah. So Black Widow is finally out in theaters. You can go check it out in your local theater, or you can pay $30 to see it on like Disney Plus Prime Access or something at home. Whichever one you feel like, go check out the movie. This is going to be a non-spoiler review for Black Widow because I don't know how many of you have seen it and I don't want to spoil it for you. But before we get started, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Check out some of my other videos. We've been doing low-key reactions, not only reviews, but actual reactions to the episodes or reaction highlights. 5 episodes deep. One more episode, season finale coming up this week. You wouldn't want to miss that, so subscribe to the channel and check out my other reactions for Loki. I'd appreciate that. So Black Widow, I wouldn't really say it's like an origin movie. This movie takes place in between Infinity War and Civil War. Natasha Romanoff is now on the run from the government because remember in Civil War she betrayed T'Challa. She betrayed everybody. She's now on the run with Steve Rogers. Well, Steve Rogers isn't in this movie. This is like in between when she joined Steve Rogers, maybe like a few weeks in between all of that. She kind of goes off on her own side adventure. So let me straight up say what I really liked about this movie. I'm actually just coming off seeing this film. I saw the movie like an hour ago. I just got home from movie theaters and I'm recording this right away. I saw this movie in IMAX. I think this is my first post-COVID movie that I'm seeing in IMAX, and it looked fantastic. I really enjoyed the action. Now, coming into this movie, you might have seen my trailer reaction. I did one trailer reaction, I think, to this movie on the channel, so check that out. It's also on the channel. But I think there I talked about how I'm really excited for the movie because it reminds me of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which is my favorite solo MCU movie. I really enjoyed the spy thriller in it and the grounded action, you know, hand-to-hand combat, gunfights, all of that good stuff. I love that. And the trailers for Black Widow reminded me of that. So I was really excited. I was really hoping that it was going to be like the Winter Soldier style type action. And for majority of the movie, that's what it was. Gunfights, hand-to-hand combats, and really cool action sequences. I really dug the action sequences in this movie. Now, this movie was directed by Kate Shortland, and I gotta say, the MCU does such a good job of giving these large projects to these directors who we might have never heard of before. Sometimes, when I'm reviewing an MCU movie nowadays, or a project, I'm like, let's see who directed it. So I went to go look up Black Widow, and I saw Kate Shortland, so I clicked on her name to see if I've seen anything else that she has done. There's like 5 movies on Google to her credit, and haven't heard of 4 of them. Black Widow's like smack right in between there, the big blockbuster movie that she was handed, and she did a pretty good job. So I really hope the MCU continues to find these kind of unknown directors and giving them the projects, because I don't think there's like a large expectation added onto the movie. Like, you know, when you see Martin Scorsese directed a movie, also he hates Marvel movies, he hates superhero movies, I don't know what it is, but yeah, if you see like Martin Scorsese directed a movie and you go to see that movie knowing he directed it, there will be some expectations. But nowadays we go into these Marvel projects not really knowing who directed them, so we don't really know what to expect. And then also these Marvel projects put those directors on the map for many other projects. In this movie I got a lot of hints of like Jason Bourne type action, very close up, quick cutting, not like shaky cam or too quick cutting where it's a bit distorted. But there was some quick cuts. It was up close. There's a lot of just up close shots in general, not only in fighting, just in general, people walking, people talking, people just doing regular things, really close up in there and just slight camera movements. I did notice that direction style. There is a bit of, like I said, Jason Bourne type action sequences in here. Again, not as much as Jason Bourne, where Jason Bourne kind of created this type of action sequences where it's like extreme shaky cam quick cuts. For me, it's a little bit distorted and it's a bit hard to look at and you're kind of wondering, what the fuck am I watching? But this movie doesn't really do that, but there are some hints of that Jason Bourne type action sequences in here. You know that shot in the trailer where she's like flying through the sky and she's like fighting in the sky? Yeah, if you get a chance, go see that in IMAX because that looked glorious. My other favorite thing about the movie is the addition of David Harbour and Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh plays Natasha's sister, and David Harbour plays the dad. And their addition to the movie, really good. They really brought the heart. Natasha is like, well, to me that was the past. I don't really care about that anymore. None of that was real to me. But Florence Pugh's character's view in this movie is that, like, well, it was like real to me. Like, to you it might not have meant anything, and you went through this Black Widow training and you became an Avenger. But to me, that family felt real. The family that you abandoned felt real. So I thought that Florence Pugh brought a lot of heart to the movie. And David Harbour was hilarious in the movie. Had the whole theater cracking up every single time he was on screen. He's great. Whatever the future of the MCU holds for him will be interesting to find out. But I'm so happy that David Harbour has joined the MCU. 10 years deep into the MCU, do I really need to mention that Scarlett Johansson is once again fantastic as Black Widow Natasha Romanoff? I don't think I need to mention that. She's badass, she's awesome, and I think it was really nice to get a full-on look into Natasha Romanoff's past and her history, and to see where she comes from, how she was trained, learn about the Red Room, learn about Budapest. We learned about that. So all of that was really nice. That's what this movie was for, to provide that information. And it did that pretty well for Natasha Romanoff as a character. The plot is a little bit formulaic. Like, you can definitely predict what's going to happen at the end of the movie. I guess there was this big plot twist, right? But I kind of figured it out as soon as they mentioned the character for the very first time. They were like, oh, so-and-so character. And I'm like, yep, that's them. And guess what? In the third act, when it was time for the big reveal, it was them all along. Was I shocked? No, because it was that predictable. And even though I thought the plot, in terms of like what the big mission is, what we have to accomplish, is very predictable, what I really liked about the story is learning about Natasha, learning about Florence Pugh's character, learning about the Red Guardian, learning about their whole family. I enjoyed that, and I would say kind of the big mission, you know, where we're going to fight at the end, what we have to achieve is kind of predictable, and it kind of plays secondhand to actually learning about Natasha and her past. I mean, that was kind of always going to be obvious. The movie's called Black Widow. And the villain, weak in this movie. It's a generic Russian bad guy. In this movie, there is a point where Black Widow does actually watch a James Bond movie. I don't know which James Bond movie it is, but James Bond movies are kind of known for having generic Russian bad guys, right? And in this movie, it's kind of a generic Russian bad guy. Did not care at all about him. There was a point in the movie where he's like explaining it all and laying it all down for Black Widow, his master plan and whatever. Super generic. I can't even give you his name right now. And I watched the movie about an hour ago. Put a gun to my head right now and tell me who was the main villain in Black Widow. I'm dead. I'm sorry. There is no way I'm gonna tell you that. I don't know who it is. I forgot his name already. And I've seen people already talk about this online. I think when the trailers first dropped, people saw Taskmaster and they were really excited because he's like a prominent Marvel villain, I guess. People talked about Taskmaster a lot and they were really hyping him up, and he was kind of a disappointment. He did provide some pretty cool action sequences, like when he's laying down hands. Awesome. But there was a fight scene also with him and Red Guardian that was set up to be something huge. Like they're facing off, they're about to fight, and then we cut away from it. And then we're doing something else, so that fight scene never gets room to breathe, and we don't really get to see that fight scene in its full scope to really cheer for the Red Guardian to go up against Taskmaster, to get that awesomeness. Never really get it. I wouldn't say Taskmaster really gets a chance to shine in this film. I guess I wonder what the future for his character is. He's very underutilized in this movie, and he doesn't say anything, which is crazy to me because when he is on screen or when we first do meet him in an action sequence, he is awesome. He kicks ass and there's some pretty cool action sequences. But from there on, it's just like, in terms of his relevance to the movie. I don't like prequels, especially when we know the fate of the character. Walking into this movie, if you didn't know that Natasha Romanoff already died in Avengers Endgame, then you're just fooling yourself. No action sequence in this movie do you ever sit there being like, oh my god, she might die here. Because guess what? She never does, because we know when she dies. We know she dies in Endgame. I hate prequels. I hate prequels who do this kind of thing. bring back a character who we know will survive this movie because we've seen them in the future. I hate that about prequels. I really wish that this movie came out back in Phase 2 or maybe even early Phase 3. We should have gotten this movie. We should have gotten a solo Black Widow movie a long time ago. Having it now, and I remember even when it was announced, a lot of people, including myself, were like, why? We know how she dies. Why is it now a prequel movie? Why couldn't we do this all that time ago? Why is Captain Marvel the first female superhero movie that we get and not Black Widow? Why? Why, Marvel? Why? As much as I praise you for doing great things, we should have gotten this movie before Captain Marvel. This movie should have been out in Phase 2 or early Phase 3. So to conclude this review, I will say that Black Widow provided me with the action sequences that I wanted to see from this film. Very exciting and entertaining action sequences that looked fantastic in IMAX. If you can go see this movie in IMAX, or just to theater in general, go see it because it won't look the same on your home screen. But the plot is formulaic, it is predictable. It's not as good as Captain America the Winter Soldier. I think a lot of people will be making that comparison. Which one is better, Black Widow, the Winter Soldier? I'm still taking the Winter Soldier. The Winter Soldier had great action. Black Widow has great action. But the story in the Winter Soldier is much better than the story in Black Widow. And although I enjoyed David Harbour, I enjoyed Florence Pugh's performance and their addition to the cast, Scarlett Johansson's awesome once again as this character. And I guess for the last time, I think this is her last ever appearance as Natasha Romanoff. I think she's already talked about this, so this is the end for her. She's great. Just a great goodbye to her, to find out her story. Combining all of that, I'm going to give Black Widow a solid B-. The minus comes mainly from the extremely forgettable villain. So, did you see Black Widow? When are you going to see Black Widow? Are you going to watch it for $30 on Disney+? I don't think it's worth $30 on Disney+, to be honest. What did you think of Black Widow? Leave all of that down in the comments. I would love to have a discussion with you about that. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Check out some of my other videos. Check out the Loki reactions, because this next week we have Loki season finale episode 6. So I will be reacting to that. You don't want to miss that. I would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.